Folks, they're saying Toronto's going to be hit the hardest. I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for the city of Toronto for week ending November 13th, 2024. Toronto's going to be hit the hardest. This is what some people are saying out there. I speak real estate all day, every day with all sorts of different people. And many of them are saying, Toronto prices just haven't come down enough. People are just fed up with how expensive Toronto is, and they're going to leave. They're going to leave by the masses. They're going to leave Toronto and go to the suburbs. Maybe, but this conversation isn't new. For as long as I can remember, Toronto has always been the epicenter of real estate around here, and it has always been the most expensive real estate. And people have always been complaining about how expensive Toronto is. And yes, many people have left. That's how the suburbs started, and that's the reason the suburbs have grown, because people have left the city. If let's define what we mean by suburb. There's, in my head, when I say suburbs, there's two kinds of suburbs. There's the suburbs directly connected to Toronto. So if we span across one side to the other, we got Mississauga, Brampton, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, Markham, and then coming down Pickering, Ajax, Whitby. So these are connected directly to the city of Toronto. And then there's the outer suburbs. You can be going to Hamilton, Georgetown, Barrie. You've got the other side. You start getting, you got Stouffville, you got Port Hope, Cobourg going down the coast on the other side. And then you can go further out naturally. So many of these outside areas exist and have become really populated, some of them, just because of they're all around Toronto. Toronto is the epicenter. It's where the majority of the jobs are. It's where, this just has so much to offer that people want to be close. Some of them need to be close, but they can't afford to live in Toronto, many people. So they go out and they commute. And now these areas have grown where you can actually live out there, work out there. You don't have to come into the city. That's a whole other type of person. But Toronto's always been the most expensive area. It always has. As prices, if we're in a market where prices are appreciating, prices are going up, the suburbs, prices go up quite a bit. Toronto, sure, they go up, but not as much as the suburbs, actually. I don't know if you've ever paid attention to that. And I'll just for an example, I'll give percentages. If Toronto may increase by 5%, the home prices, the suburbs may go up 10%. So there's a greater appreciation in prices in the suburbs. Well, if Toronto's already the most expensive area, that 5% increase in prices pushes even more people out. But the reverse is also true going the other way. When prices tend to come down, we're in that kind of a market where prices are depreciating, well, the suburbs will come down quite a bit. They'll come down 10% in price, which hurts a lot of people. Toronto may come down maybe 5%. So there's always been that dynamic. Toronto prices do not go up as much in an upward market, but they also don't come down as much in a downward market. And yes, many people over the years have left the city for different reasons. A lot has to do with affordability, and they can get far more house for the same amount of money outside of the city of Toronto. But for every one person leaving, how many are trying to get in? How many want to be in? How many need to be in the city? That's what's maintaining home prices. And a lot of people don't see that aspect of it. So will Toronto get hit the hardest? Look, if we use history as an example, if Toronto gets hit hard, I'd hate to see what happens to the suburb, because Toronto's always, when things are bad, they're less bad in Toronto. I don't know if that's a real word I'm using there, less bad. when things are good, hey, Toronto benefits like everybody else. So something really, really drastic has to happen for prices to really tumble hard, because there's so many people that just want to be in the city. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. There's a link up here to my calendar, another one below this video in the description. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, how about a semi that's just been completed with a legal separate basement suite? We got 2 of them. Check out, the links will be on the screen at the end of the video. Let's get started. City of Toronto, that's all we're focused on in this show today. We're going to be focused on the freehold market. So detached, semis, and towns. I do have condo here for reference between average condo prices and average detached prices. There's an $845,000 difference. I've marked here the beginning of the fall market. So September moving forward. And if we look where prices were beginning of September, 1.5. We're ending here at 1.570. We've been at 1.5, 1.6. Prices, depending on which spot you kind of look at, really haven't moved that much over the course of the fall. We're going to start off with the detached market. For week ending November 13th, 138 detached properties were sold. This is just for the city of Toronto. 138 detached properties were sold. 29 of those were at $2 million or more. Sales are now starting to, it seems pretty consistent, trend down, which is a very typical trend. Although actually I was going to say typical trend. Didn't look like so much of that last year. It kind of stayed around 100 and then dropped off quickly the last couple of weeks of the year. But usually it starts to trend down as we get closer to the end of the year. Right now, sales are trending down. Average sold price, way down from the previous week. It's currently, for week ending November 13th, $1,570,000. How's that compared to kind of some of the other months? Well, it looks like a little bit on the lower side of what we've been seeing for average sold prices over the fall period. Let's look at some of our other charts. Compared to last year, 1,570 is 3% lower for the same week a year ago. The median price is 5% higher. The median price is 1,318. Now, I circled a couple of over here. You know, we're looking at the beginning of the fall, 1,573. We're now at 1,570. Obviously, with those numbers, not a lot of movement there. It's been a lot of things happening in between. And when we look at the dotted line, that's a 4-week moving average. And it looks like for a while prices were going up. And overall, they're higher than where they are here. However, I circled this because that 1 week, especially when you're dealing with a 4-week moving average, it has a way of pulling up the average prices for a while, moving past it up to 4 weeks. So look, these are the numbers we're dealing with. So if we take averages on a weekly basis, we're going to see fluctuations. It's not a foolproof system, but we're looking for a trend. When we apply a 4-week moving average, it has a way of smoothing out that line so we don't get the peaks and valleys, but it's still not a foolproof system. So I'm looking at this, and part of my job is, how do I interpret the numbers? And I know this 1 week there is kind of pulling up the line. The reality, I believe, and through working with buyers and sellers and really focus on pricing and buying and setting prices for new listings, prices have not moved much over the course of the fall market. 138 were sold, 36% sold at list price or more. That 36% is, if you kind of look back for the fall market, it's pretty consistent. A little bit under 36, a little bit over 36. It's pretty average. Listings, 289 were listed. Listings are trending down. Active listings, the amount of listings available for sale, that is also trending down, but slightly. It's not an aggressive downturn. And months of inventory, pretty average to what we've been seeing since for the month of October anyways. We're now in November, but we're at 3.4 months of inventory. If we look back to the beginning of the fall market, beginning of September to mid-October, we were mid 2 point something. We did get 1 week of 3.3, but let's say mid 2.6 is about the average. We are now, I would say overall, a bit higher than that. So months of inventory has trended up, but it's not a straight line up. We're now sitting at 3.4 months of inventory. That's for the whole city of Toronto, the detached market only. If we break the city down into 9 different sections and we say the whole city's at 3.4, averages out to months of inventory, well, some areas are way more aggressive than that. Riverdale, East York, Riverdale Beaches, we're sitting at 2.3 months of inventory. Rexdale, Downsview, 2.6 months of inventory. I know there was only 10 homes sold there, and the average price is just over $1 million. That for sure has something to do with it. Scarborough, look, it's a little bit less than 3.4, but not so much. It's at 3 months of inventory. Scarborough usually is one of our more aggressive areas when it comes to activity and months of inventory. Just a quick note here. York Mills, Rosedale, the average price is almost $3.3 million. 21 detached properties were sold there for a week ending November 13th. Semi-detached properties. 50 of those were sold. 9 of those were at $1.5 million or more. Average sold price is $1,273,000. 1,273 is 3% higher year over year. The median price is $1,145,000, and that's 2% lower year over year. Months of inventory for semis, looks like it's been climbing over the last 3 weeks, now sitting at 2.1 months of inventory. 58% of all the semi-detached properties sold at list price or more. Townhomes, these are freehold townhomes. 9 were sold, none of them sold at $1.5 million or more. Average sold price way down to $973,000. We've been 1.1, 1.2 for 1.2 or higher for many, many weeks. This is an unusual week for average sold price being that low when it comes to freehold townhomes. 973 looks like it's 15% lower year over year. The median price of 980 is 10% lower year over year. Months of inventory shot way up. Now remember, sales came way down. Months of inventory as a result is way up, now sitting at 4.9 months of inventory. Here's a quick summary. Pretty much we're sitting in a balanced market. You may experience a buyer's market in some neighborhoods, but pretty much sitting in a balanced market. Now check out those 2 awesome semis with legal secondary basement suites. The links should be on the screen. Have yourself an awesome day.